everybody. Am I a bit loud? Probably don't need the microphone as loud because my voice tends to be quite loud. I want to talk to you this morning about being fruitful for God. And normally when we talk about fruitfulness, we talk about the fruits of the Spirit. But I want to come at it a different direction, just so I'm not confusing you. There's a beautiful piece of scripture found in 1 John chapter 2, verse 15 to 17. And this is not the main text that I'm going to be focusing on, but it helps to unlock the main text that I'm going to be focusing on. It says this: "Do not love the world, nor the things in the world." So there's the first key to being fruitful for God. Well, what are we talking about, loving the world? Well, he goes on in the next sentence. "If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him." So there's two things there. Love of the world means that you're not fruitful for God. Love of the world means that God is not in you. His love is not in you. So there are two things defining this world thing. So what is the world? It says, "For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life." This is the world that he's talking about. That is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away, and also all of its lusts. But the one who does the will of the Father will live forever. We could leave it there. Go away, think about what that means for the rest of our lives. And we put it into practice. I guarantee you that you will be fruitful for God. For if you spend your life focused on desiring the things that this world has to offer, you will fall short of the love and the glory of God. For God has not called you to love things and the things of this world. God has called you to love Him first and foremost, and then people secondly. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. The golden rules of Christianity. Anything else which says it is the golden rule of Christianity is a lie. It's a deceit. And it comes from a worldly desire or design. I want to speak to you about religion this morning and about faith. For there is a difference between religion and faith. One, God is in control and He's ruling and reigning in your life. That is faith. Religion, you are in control. And you give some homage to God when it suits you at a time of your calling. God demands that He has your whole life, not just a bit on the side. You know, it's not like this. It's not the way we treat our sexuality, where we have our partners all over the place, sleeping with whoever pleases our lusts and our desires and our designs. No, God has called us into a relationship with Him, an intimacy with Him that is exclusive and has no other partner involved. For those who sleep with many partners are worthless in the eyes of the Lord. But those who sleep and their intimacy is with God and is ordained in His marriage to Him has been sanctified, has been saved, and will be fruitful for the age to come. And it doesn't matter what you may have done in the past. You may have been unfaithful. You may have been looking around, doing all these other things. But you know you can change if you change. You don't have to continue in the lifestyle that you've come accustomed to, because there is an opportunity to change. You know what I love about the prophetic? Some people talk about the prophetic as it's telling the future. The prophetic in its primary call is to confront. Is to tell the truth like it is. There are too many people out there who are not truthful with who they are and what they represent. They talk as if they're talking in the language of God, in the way of God, but in reality, their lifestyles do not match to who they worship or claim to worship. But God is calling His church to represent Him, to take a higher calling, to be like Him, to follow after His ways, and not after their own. For ultimately, we own nothing. We come into the world with nothing. We go out of the world with nothing. And those who try to hold on to what they have in this life will lose it, because you can't take it with you. And we can look to the Pharaohs. We can see all the tombs that they lavishly bestowed with every good thing that they had on this earth. And where is it today? It's still on this earth. It hasn't come to the heavens that they had prepared it for. All the works of their hands were for nothing. It was a testimony to their failure. Yet we look at the pyramids and we say, this is a wonder of the world. God laughs. So much for this wonder. So much for this greatness. So much for what man has said is the superiorness. It means nothing because you can't take it with you. And if you are here today thinking that you are making something of your life, you can't take it with you. If you are here today thinking that you have it all, you do not, because you were not given it. Unless you bow the knee to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and you take up His call, you take up His answer, because any lesser call means nothing. It's worthless. It's like the spirit of Ahab and Jezebel. There are too many Christians out there who are living in the spirit of Jezebel and Ahab. Instead of confronting the world, they're compromising with it. Instead of being exclusive in their relationships with God and their people, they're sleeping around with everybody, looking for favor, looking for excitement, looking for entertainment, as if they are the God. And God is not who He says or claims to be. But God is who He claims to be. And although we can go about the busyness of our lives, at the end of the day, He's got time on His hands to wait. But He does not sit there waiting idly. He sends His prophets to speak to His people. Oh, that they may change their paths and follow after Him. We're going to look at the prophet Elijah in a minute, but the reality is this. The last prophecy in the Old Testament was that Elijah would return. Now, he didn't physically return, but his spirit returned. And the man who He placed that spirit upon was known to us as John the Baptist. And his message was, repent! For the kingdom of God is at hand. Change your ways. Wake up and smell the coffee. It's not all about you. There is a king. It's not about your ways and what you're trying to achieve for yourself. It's all about Him. And He's coming that you may have life and life to the full. And how many people listen to the words of John the Baptist? Not many. Because at the end of the day, there are those who want to close their ears even to the message that I am speaking this morning. But those who choose to bury their heads in the sand will be washed away in the coming flood. We remember the story of the one who built his house on the rock and the one who built his house on the sand. At the time of judgment and trial and temptation, one was washed away, the other one stood and lasted after the storm. It's a sadness. I was on the train coming back from Glasgow the other day. We were delayed because somebody chose to take their life and step out in front of the train. I know if we think that our society has it in how to handle people, this used to happen, apparently, according to the train guard, after exams or at Christmas time. But now it is happening 3 times a week. Our society, which promotes ownership, is taking the lives of people who are aspiring to own something which does not belong to them. No wonder there is such a time as mental illness. No wonder there is such a time as feeling sorry for yourself. No wonder there's such a time of sexual deprivation in such a way and in such a power. 2012, 100% increase in sexually transmitted diseases. But do you hear the news promoting this? No. Because the people are being deceived. Have your own life. Live your own way. It has no effect on us. But we know the truth. If you live your life outside of God's word, it will have an effect on you and the people around you. And we find now in 1 Kings 21, a man called Ahab is trying to own it all. But in the process, he's about to lose everything that he has. 1 Kings 21. Now Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard in Jezreel, besides the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. And after this, Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it's near my house, and I will give you a better vineyard for it." Number one thing we need to understand: be careful of generosity with strings attached to it. Be careful of generosity with strings attached for it. Because not everything that looks to be good, not everything that looks to be righteous, not every gift that every person gives you has a pure heart behind it. You see, here is Ahab. He's wanting to turn something which is beautiful, wine, vineyard, into something which is of the earth, plain, boring vegetables. Which would you rather have? Would you rather have the wine, or would you rather have the vegetables? I always leave my vegetables on the side of the plate and just go for the main course. Now it may have it on my health at a later time, but the taste is different. And here is somebody who's got enough vineyards, enough wine, enough luxury, but he's not content with the luxury and what he has. He seeks to take that which belongs to somebody else and make it his own. Because it's convenient for him. And too often those who give generously for convenience, it's about control. about coveting. It's about desiring to be God. It's their way, not your way. It's their way, not God's way. And this is what religion does. It seeks to make you feel good about yourself because you're giving. And the strings are attached in how you give. Your time, there are strings attached to that. Your tithe, there are strings attached to that. Your relationships, there are strings attached to that. Because at the end of the day, you want to get on with what you want to do. So you limit church to a Sunday or one event. You limit church to the idea of giving into the offering basket. But God has called you to be a people, not a building, not a ritual. He's called you into a relationship with Him and His Spirit, and that requires the best. The sunlight. Living in the sunlight. No strings attached. Giving. I once received a gift from somebody that was designated for a specific purpose. And I refused that gift because I knew at the end of the day that a gift should just be given with no purposes attached. You truly want to give to somebody or something, you want to give to God, don't try and determine where that giving is going to. Just give it to God. They submitted their wealth and their tithe and their offerings at the apostles' feet. Why? Because God knew that the apostle represented Him. They were not giving to a person. They were giving to God because they knew that God had ordained these people for such a time and such a place as this. And they were responsible for stewarding God's finance. But Ahab believed that everything had a price. And to be fruitful, you have to purchase and expand. The law of the land prevented this. Because when they came into the promised land, God had given them all portions as an inheritance of their relationship with God. The land was tied to relationship with God. And each generation, each family had their own portion. Yet Ahab was not satisfied with the portion that he had. He wanted to swap it for somebody else's, just because it was convenient. Are you satisfied with the portion that God has given you? Or are you always seeking to take someone else's? Too many people want to be the preacher. Too many people want to have the title. Too many people want to have the responsibility. But has God called you to that title, to that responsibility? Understand the boundaries that God has placed around your life and be content with those boundaries. For those who seek to go outside of the boundaries, they end up getting lost. What does it matter if you gain the whole world and yet lose your soul? So Ahab went into his house vexed and sullen because of what Naboth the Jezreelite had said to him. For he had said, I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers. And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and would not eat. But Jezebel his wife came to him and said to him, Why is your spirit so vexed that you eat no food? And he said to her, Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite and said to him, Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if you please, I will give you another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give you my vineyard. Oh, I don't got what I wanted. I feel sorry for myself. Some people, they throw the toys out of the pram. Didn't go my way. It's not what I want. How many times do we see it in the news? When somebody hasn't got what they wanted, they start to sulk. They start to feel sorry for themselves. Nobody loves me. Everybody hates me. I think I'll go and eat worms. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about Him and what He has given us. And so here is the combat that's going on between the man who would own everything and the man who is a steward on God's behalf. I open up my hands because everything I have is yours, Lord. I don't hold on to any little thing. I don't say, I want to be the pastor of this church and I'm not letting go. I want to be able to be respected. I want everybody to love me. I want to fit in. I want to be popular. I want to do all these different things. I don't care. Because at the end of the day, it's not my church. You're not my people. This is not our building. These are not our children. These are not our friends. It all belongs to Him. And although we may have the pleasure of it in this moment, in this time, enjoy the pleasure of what you have in this moment, in this time, but know that there will be a time when you will pass it on. It won't belong to you. Somebody else will take ownership. I love inheritance. I love the fact that I'm saving money up to give to my children. Why do I love that fact? Because I'm investing in the future beyond myself. I'm realizing life only starts with me. But it continues. And it didn't even really start with me. It went before me with my father. And my father's father. And his father. We're part of a generational cycle. And although you may be the youth of today, you will be the old person of tomorrow. So respect your elders. For if you teach disrespect, you will earn disrespect. But equally, if you're an elder person, encourage the younger people. Because if you disencourage the younger people, you disenfranchise yourself from the future that God has got for those people. And Jezebel, his wife, said to him, "Do you now govern Israel?" Don't you love those people who think they're self-important? You're a person of power. Woo! People should respect you. People should do what you want when you want to do it. You say jump, they should say how high. The culture of importance. Do you not govern Israel? The irony of this statement. Israel are the people of God. His governance is a stewardship unto God. He doesn't own the people of Israel. He doesn't own the land. And yet God in His graciousness has given them many palaces, because we're talking about the one palace in Jezreel. But not content with the one palace, He seeks to go for more. He seeks to take the land and authority of a poorer man called Naboth. because he wants it for himself. Arise and eat bread and let your heart be cheerful. Why don't you have fun? Get as much out of life as you want. Be happy. These are the promises that are told to you. If you do what you want, when you want it, how you want it, you'll be happy. But how long does happiness last? Happiness is fleeting. Because it's gone one day, it's here the next. You want the new iPhone X? Yes, 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 exciting. People queue up for miles. About 5 months later, they're waiting for the next thing. You're not content with happiness. You need to experience joy. Joy is being able to be content with what you have in the here and now. Whether you have plenty or whether you have nothing. Be determined that I am going to be celebrating my life because it's mine. It's unique. I don't have to compare who I am to anyone else because I am unique. And although I may not have what this person has here, I do have what God has given me. And that's important. That's precious. Because it's a gift to you. And you alone. No one else can take your gift unless you allow them to take it. The enemy can speak to you, confuse your mind, take your mind, try to make you dissatisfied with what God has given you. But God gave it to you. And it's yours to make of with what you choose. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them up with his seal. And she sent the letters to the elders and the leaders who lived with Naboth in his city. And she wrote in the letters, proclaim a fast and set Naboth at the head of the people and set 2 worthless men opposite him. And let them bring a charge against him, saying, you have cursed God and the king. Then take him out and stone him to death. And the men of his city, the elders and the leaders who lived in the city, oh, you'd love to have it here, wouldn't you? They told her where to go. They told her what to do. Because she was a self-righteous. And I really want to say the word of what she is. But we're quite prim and proper here, aren't we? But God sees. God knows. And God is watching. And the men do the very thing that she suggests. They take an innocent man. They lift him up to a place of responsibility. And then when everything goes wrong, they point the finger. Kill. Kill. By what they did to Jesus. They took an innocent man who didn't fit in with their philosophy, with the way they thought about things. They took an innocent man who stood out from the crowd, who declared the things of God, who stood up for something that was different, who showed that life was about stewardship and not ownership. They took him outside the city after making him full of self-importance, after the Palm Sundays where the palm trees were laid down and he was declared that he was going to be their king. He was going to be the prominent one amongst them. After they did all this, then they pointed the finger and said that he cursed God and the king. That's what Jesus was crucified for. That's what Naboth was crucified for. His blood was shed because he was an innocent man in the wrong time, in the wrong place, declaring what was right for the people of God. He refused to be intimidated. He confronted and challenged their thinking, even though he knew it would cost him his life. That's what God is calling his church to be. A people who are not afraid to challenge the status quo. A people who are prepared to speak into this world which is corrupt and fallen. About 4 months or 4 weeks ago, I was about to walk the dog and come to church to prepare my sermon. And I decided to go downstairs. I put my boots on at the door. I switched the lights on the outside and on the inside of the house. And I thought, I'd put my shoes on before I get the dog out the crate. Because it's a nightmare trying to put your shoes on with a dog around. It just picks up your shoes and runs off, and you're trying to catch him and all that type of thing. And as I was doing this, the light went on. I all of a sudden heard a car screeching outside to the stop. I thought, wow, I'm in a movie here. What's going on? The door slams and this bang against the door. I'm on the other side of the door thinking, what's going on? I opened the letterbox and I said, "Oi!" in my loudest voice. And I hear the footsteps running away from the door back to the car, and two people are arguing. What did I think of at that moment in time? I'm not content to stay silent when somebody needs to speak into the situation. Because I started to think, I live in a street with a load of older people. And in this street, I don't want people to be living in fear that they're going to be attacked or that their houses are going to be broken into. And so I wasn't really angry, but I was fired up. I opened the door and went out onto the street, and there's this big guy. I said, "Where's Tommy? I want to see Tommy." I said, "I don't even know who Tommy is. But you need to be more respectful of what you're doing to people's doors. You could have given somebody a heart attack if it was the wrong person." "I don't care. Where is Tommy?" I said, "You should care. Because at the end of the day, you can end up hurting somebody with your attitude that you feel that you can do what you want, when you want it, to whom you want." But the man was non-repentant. So I got my phone out, got it onto the photograph section and said, "I'm going to call the police. But before I do, I'm going to take a picture of your registration number." As I did this, another guy comes out the car. Sorry. We're sorry, mate." Because he was switched on. He wasn't on drugs like the other guy. He was able to reason because he saw that something was wrong. But the only reason he could see that something was wrong was because somebody was prepared to confront him. That is what it means by being a prophetic people. Not that we see the future or foretell the future, although that is a subset of prophecy. But that we stand up for what is right and we speak into what is wrong. It is wrong to get drunk. It is wrong to commit adultery. It is wrong to steal from your neighbor. It is wrong to blaspheme the name of God. It is wrong to do so many different things, and yet we find even in the church these things are celebrated. Under the carpet in some cases. But in some cases, if you read Facebook, it's plastered all over there because God's people are not repentant. They've not changed. because they think that they can get away with it and eat their cake. Just like Ahab, just like Jezebel. But you know what? It says in the scriptures, do not get drunk through wine and through spirit, but in the Spirit of God. If you want to limit God's Spirit moving in His house and through His people, then be a drunkard. Be somebody who likes to drink. Because you limit the things of God. You like to be in control. You like to experience what you want to experience. You're not prepared to wait on God. You want it in your own time. To feel it. The sensationalism. It tickles me. It makes me feel good about myself. It makes me say the things I don't dare say because I've got the confidence. These are the things that the Spirit does to you. He gives you the confidence. He makes you feel good about yourself. Yet Ahab wanted to own what was not his. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he is gone to take possession. You shall say to him, Thus says the Lord, Have you killed and also taken possession? And you shall say to him, Thus says the Lord, In the place where dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, dogs shall lick up your own blood. Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, O enemy? He answered, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do what is evil in the sight of the Lord. Behold, I will bring disaster upon you. I will utterly burn you up. I will cut off from Ahab every male, bond or free in Israel. I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah, for the anger to which you have provoked me, and because you have made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel the Lord also said, The dogs shall eat Jezebel within the walls of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in the city, the dogs shall eat. Any one of his who dies in the open country, the birds of the heavens shall eat. There was none who sold himself to do what was evil in the sight of the Lord like Ahab, whom Jezebel his wife incited. He acted very abominably in going after idols, as the Amorites have done, whom the Lord cast out before the people of God. And when Ahab heard these words, he tore his clothes and put sackcloth on his flesh, and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went about dejectedly. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself before me? Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the disaster in his days, but in his son's days I will bring the disaster upon his house. The moral of this passage, or the lesson to learn, is that power corrupts, that absolute power corrupts absolutely, but especially that God checks that power and calls it to account. If divine judgment seems slow in coming, wait. The announcement may have been designed for a generation to come. We need to pray for our nation and the nation of America that rapes, that pillages, that takes what is not belonging to it, that prophesies this control, this ownership mentality, that promotes the American dream, which is not God's dream, that says that you own it to yourself. It's all about advertising the lifestyle that you can buy or purchase, as if by purchasing something you own it, you do not. For as soon as you die, that thing that you own becomes somebody else's, or is thrown on the scrap heap of the yesteryear. There's a consequence And you don't even need to be prophetic to foretell the future. But God will deal with this nation and the nations that adhere to these practices. Because God is a righteous judge. He separates those who are vulnerable and innocent and protects them, while those seek to do them harm. It doesn't matter whether our government decriminalizes abortion. It doesn't matter. It's still wrong. And those who abort are killing. In whatever words you want to say, oh, it's not a baby. Isn't it ironic how the word baby or term baby depends on whether you want it or not? The reality is it's still a baby. When we teach our children that they can change their gender, the reality is this, is our gender is not determined by us. It's determined by God. You want to look like something which you're not, because you haven't fully realized the beauty that God has created deep inside you. Rather than teaching the beauty of who people are, our society is teaching the beauty of who our people should be. Be content with who God has made you to be. And in your contentment, God will make you fruitful. In your discontentment, God will make you fruitless. For as you treat your fellow neighbor is how you treat your God. How can any man say that he loves God and yet despises his neighbor? How can any man say that God is my leader when they don't even recognize the leader in the church? You can't respect that which is flesh before you. There's no chance you're going to respect who is not flesh. And as you treat one, God will treat the other. Beware of flattery, for those who seek to build you up just so they can drag you down. Beware of those who use the name of authority when it's not their name to use. The Jezebels, who write on behalf of those who've got the true authority, who try to deceive others to cast the stones. Isn't it funny how Jezebel didn't want to get her own hands dirty? She tried to use everybody else. What happened to her? She was thrown down to the dust. She was treated like dirt. Why? Because she treated everybody else like dirt. Look what I stepped in. Mentality that human beings are to be treated like dirt, when yet God breathed His life into them, gave them breath. We are to treat our fellow humanity with the love of God, as God loved us. Shall we stand?